What's up, guys? So thank you for joining us today on the podcast. Eugene and I are going to talk about some ideas on emotions. Sure, some parts of this might make some of you emotional. I don't think it's that controversial or anything. I'm not that kind of person, but nonetheless, I find that people become much more emotional over the years.
Maybe, yeah.
I think so. Like people, like things that would have never been on the radar. Now it's like people sending messages. Wait a second, Chewy. That's
Life's too good, man. We gotta find different stuff to argue about.
Life's not too good. There's actually all kinds of really rough stuff, but we don't really pay attention to it. We pay attention to stuff that doesn't really matter most of the time. Because there's really, really important stuff that could be done to make the world better and to make lives better for our fellow citizens. But instead of focusing on that, we focus on some silly stuff. But we're going to get to the podcast because you guys did not come here for that. And so we're going to jump into the podcast here in a second. Big thanks. We now have a new sponsor. So big thanks to our new sponsor, Acorns. So we don't use the same technology as our parents or drive the same cars or watch the same shows. But when it comes to our finances, why do we manage it in the same old-fashioned way like before? The Acorns app is a new and modern way of approaching your finances by combining baking and investing into one seamless experience. Acorns works in the background of your life. Every time you get paid, Acorns can invest a piece of it. Every time you make a purchase, Acorns can set aside some of your spare change from that purchase. Then Acorns invest your spare change into portfolios that grow with time. What makes investing with Acorns so easy is that you don't need a lot of money or experience. $5 is all you need to get started. In fact, when you sign up with Acorns, going to acorns.com/Jiu-Jitsu, when you invest $5, you get a $20 bonus to invest just for signing up. Again, you can do that by going to acorns.com/Jiu-Jitsu. Grow your oak with Acorns. Remember to consider your investment objectives before investing. For further information, including risks, visit acorns.com. And then, as always, guys, thanks to our other sponsors like Charlotte's Web. One of you guys sent a drinking game. It was so funny. So they sent us an email, and it was like, take a drink if Chewy does this. Take a
Should
drink.
we share it with people?
I can give you the gist of it. I mean, one of which was like, take a drink if Chewy says, or take a shot if Chewy says anything about CBD or whatever. And I get it. I talk about it every time. But I mean, here's the deal. I friggin' love this stuff. It's one of the best supplements I can, and again, it's one of these weird things because I go into like looking at the studies, and the studies are still super murky. Like there's not a lot of great stuff on there, but you have this massive amount of anecdotal evidence, which I know that they're actually conducting some studies right now that I'm interested in seeing the results of, but the studies are still relatively scant, and the dosages that they use a lot of times for the studies are very high. Like I think one was like they showed that it could have it could reduce certain things related to whatever, but it was like 600 milligrams of CBD, which is a massive dose.
Yeah.
Still, that's good news because most of the time you're not going to take nearly that much, and so it's good that it doesn't have toxicity to itself, but nonetheless, if you go through and you look at the anecdotal evidence that a lot of people say that they received from it, myself included, it's the reason why it's on the podcast. If I didn't really like the product, I wouldn't sell it on here or push it or offer it to you guys. But I like it. I think it's a great product. Recently I was dealing with some issues with my sleep. And one of the things, like, it's so interesting because, like, as you guys may know, this is just the way I am. When it comes to things like caffeine, supplements, and everything else, I cycle on and off of everything because I don't want to feel like I need it. Just the way it is. But I remember I dealt with a few sleepless nights, and I just noticed how much better I feel when I use it. I can't say, oh, it fixed my anxiety or anything nothing like that. All I can tell you is that I feel better when I'm on it personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that if you have never tried it, I encourage you to give it a try. Right now I'm using the original formula, mint chocolate. Favorite. I really like it. I think there's something to it, although it's definitely like the taste is a little bit like herbalier. That's a word. More herbal.
Yeah, it's it's because they derive the CBD a little differently.
Well, have you ever looked at it? It's got like it's got stuff floating in it.
I don't know.
Yeah, if you pull it out, like when you do the dropper, like look at it, it's got like it's very cloudy.
Yeah.
But again, it's a fantastic product. Nonetheless, if you guys have never tried CBD, I encourage you to give it a try. Try it for a month. Give it a whirl. Again, every supplement that I personally, if I'm interested, I'll try it for a month, see what it does. But give it a whirl for a month and see if you feel any difference. Again, everybody's body is different, everybody's endocannabinoid system is different. And so you may be affected from it in a really good way. You may not be. Again, you may have completely different anecdotal evidence or experiences than I do. But nonetheless, most people who try it generally, like, we get lots of messages from people, and people's messages are generally like, I really like this stuff. Thank you for sharing it with me. Yeah. So again, that's why it's on the podcast. And so again, encourage you guys to give it a try. If you want to check out some of Charlotte Webb's products, that's the CBD that I use, and it's the one that Eugene uses. It's the one we have on the podcast. You can get a 20% discount by going to their website at Jiu-Jitsu, or not Jiu-Jitsu, but not my website, charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Chewjitsu20. So you get 20% off your order. And again, I'm using the original formula, mint chocolate. Give that one a whirl. Try it out for a month and see what you think. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll. Matt at Epic Roll. Again, this was another one of the drinking games. You can't make a drinking game with the stuff that, like, with the sponsors, man. Turd. That's not fair. I can't help it. I mean, because then you'd be drunk with us.
There was a lot of thought that went into this email.
There was
like tiers to, like, there's like tier 1 drink, tier 2 drink, you know, or two.
Yeah, he even mentioned one was like, if Chewy says anything about the Heroes Dirty and Joseph Campbell. I was like, you've listened to some of that stuff.
He's like, Eugene said anything about recovery.
I was like, he's a physical therapist. What is he supposed to talk about? He spent like 10 years getting a degree in that stuff. That's just the way your brain thinks.
He's just setting you all up to get drunk.
Yeah.
Watch out.
But Matt at Epic Roll, fantastic sponsor, makes fantastic products. If you guys are interested in getting gis, rash guards, t-shirts, joggers, gym gear, I mean, anything, just go check his website out. I love the designs that he has for all of his stuff. I love the quality of the products. And so he's a sponsor. We just finished up doing all the rash guards and stuff. If you guys got those, they're being shipped out now, which is fantastic. I hope you guys enjoy them. And I'll be doing more with him in the future because of the quality of the products and because I like what he puts out. And so you can check him out at epicrollbjj.com. Check out any of the products, like all this stuff, and you can use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu to save 15% on the order on whatever you buy. And if you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, along with back-end content that hasn't been released anywhere else on the interwebs. You also get a chance to hang out with Eugene and me directly, where we do a green room episode, which is a live episode of the podcast where basically before a podcast, Eugene and I just we get here to the studio and we just kind of talk and bullshit. And then if you guys would like to join in with that, you can do that live. So if you'd like to get the content that we have on the back end, which includes videos, podcast extras with the people that were on the podcast with us, along with a bunch of different other stuff, check it out by going to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, if you guys would like to get 3 ebooks and a free video related to Jiu-Jitsu, you can do so by going to jiujitsu.net/join, JOIN. So along with joining the email list, that's what it is. It's my Chew Crew email list where you'll get my daily email, which a lot of times will give you kind of an insight as to what the episodes are going to look like in the future. You'll also get access to 3 ebooks. One is for drilling in Jiu-Jitsu. One is for building a game plan, and the other one is for an at-home jiu-jitsu study and workout routine. Basically, it's a bunch of different stuff that you can study and work out to or use for workouts. And then there's a video on how to do the drilling stuff, and you can put all that stuff together and you get it all for free by joining my email list. And again, you'll get my daily email, which I hope you enjoy. And if for some reason, if you don't want to receive those anymore, you just unsubscribe at any time and you're good to go. So guys, with that said, thank you so much for being here today. Let's jump into the podcast. What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, we're going to talk about something that I think it's just interesting. It's an interesting thing with we're going to talk about jiu-jitsu. I imagine that this one will kind of go off the rails. Eugene and I typically don't get too political type stuff. I don't think these things are political. I think these things are what I'm going to give you some rules that I follow so that you don't get like thrown about by random stuff. You'll see what I mean in just a second, but we are going to stick with jiu-jitsu for a bit.
Yeah, I think the idea will be to start with jiu-jitsu and then have it spill over into life.
But I'm sure at some point this episode will piss off some of you guys. So whatever. Whoops. But so the other day I was listening to Gordon Ryan talk, and regardless of what you think about Gordon Ryan, I mean, he's one of the best jiu-jitsu grapplers that has ever been. It is what it is, right? I think it's interesting because I've seen him interact with people offline and like in person and stuff. He's incredibly nice to at least most of the people I've seen. And then online, he has this persona and, talks trash, whatever else. But what's interesting about him is that he controls opponents in a lot of cases well before he ever even grapples them. So he seemingly hijacks these respectful, usually calm martial artists, and they lose their cool. And he does this by basically hijacking their emotions. He's in control of them before they even step on the match. And this is kind of a rule for myself. I'll give you a couple of them today's, but one of my rules is that you at least have to attempt. And I say attempt because we all lose our cool sometimes, but you need to be in a control of your emotions at all times, and not allow that power to be given to someone else. Because when you do, if it's in a jiu-jitsu setting, you do really dumb stuff. Like you start smacking a person until they get DQ'd. That happened with Cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
You get into backstage fights. That happened with Govao, right? Like you smack the guy and then you guys are fighting, and you can get hamstrung by fear. And again, nobody's going to admit to that, but I can guarantee you, if you could get inside someone's body and feel what they were feeling, there were probably some people, I think Buchecha was probably one of them, where like probably wasn't able to pull the trigger because of it being Gordon Ryan. Because Buchecha looked like, when you watch that match with Buchecha,
ADCC in 19.
When you watch that match with Buchecha was abnormally, there could have been injuries or other things going on there, but he was abnormally not active. Buchecha usually is such an absolute monster, and he's all over the place. And I wonder how much of it was due to the persona of Gordon, and again, maybe he felt nothing. I don't know, but I'm just saying, just watching it, I'm like, man, that just doesn't look like him, and that could be because Gordon's just that good, or it could be because, the emotions that played into it, like, oh man, this damn kid that like talks trash to everybody. I don't want to lose. The character. I don't want to lose to this person. And so emotions have their place, but they're useful when you're under your control, right? Because emotions are energy, and you can direct that energy in good places, but they shouldn't be in control. An analogy that I used in one of my emails recently was that they're like children. You can't let them drive the car, but you can't stuff them in the trunk either. Granted, you probably don't want to stuff your kids in the trunk. I don't know.
No.
Right? Probably don't want to do that. Probably against some laws or something like that. But the idea behind that, right? It's like your children. Children, they're impulsive, they're whatever.
Sure.
And you can flow with that, right? You can go with your kids. You can flow with their emotions and their spontaneity, but you don't want to let them drive the driver's seat. You don't want to let the kids make the big decisions in the household, right? That's for you guys to do. You got to think about it like that. Your emotions a lot of times can spark really fast, and you need to notice them and understand them and flow with them, but they should not be making the big decisions. You shouldn't be making big decisions emotionally. And really, you want to try to make very few decisions emotionally. Granted, we're human, we are emotional creatures, and we're going to, but you want to try not to. I mean, even I remember when I was younger, one of my lifting mentors, Jim, he told me that he never made any big decision in his life till after a lift. He would always go lift weights first, just so he could clear his head, get out of his body, basically work through the emotion, and then make a decision that was rational and the best choice that he could possibly.
Okay.
I've sort of done the same thing where I don't make any decision until after some sort of workout, some time away from that, if it's an emotionally charged situation. And so this is a situation you got to take over to jiu-jitsu, and pretty much anything off the mat. Just as a competitor, might talk trash and gain some control over someone's emotions, there's people, there's all sorts of different people that might try to hijack your emotions in order to control you in a particular way. It could be a toxic family, angry exes, media corporations, all sorts of people, right? And if you allow them to do this, you effectively lose control of yourself. And that's a bad place to be on the mats or off the mats, in my bearded opinion. And I think the key about it is awareness, right? Like, again, if you start looking at some of the decisions you make and you notice that you're a bit emotional about them, just notice that certain things are going to get you emotional. So for me, for instance, here, let's talk off. Like, here's an example. I'll give you two examples. I'll give you one on the mat, one off the mat. On the mat, I used to be terrible about, like, when someone would knee me in the face or whatever accidentally, it would really just piss me off. Eugene will remember the days where like there was a Chewy face. I'd get like gritty and like, and I'd come at you.
Yep.
So, but again, it's not that person's fault, but I would interpret it in a negative way. Like I'm like, you're being wild, you're possibly injuring me, whatever. Well, fast forward, I didn't want to do that anymore. So I started catching myself and taking breaths. And the culmination of this, one of the most, it's strangely a proud moment for me. So 2014, January, rolling, I shoot in for a farmer's carry takedown, and my student, for whatever reason, knees me right in the face, breaks my nose. I fall down to the ground. I'm laying there, and there's like a weird feeling that like happens whenever your body's really hurt, and I could feel the blood pooling into my hands. I looked up, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is disgusting," or whatever. Like they see my nose busted up, whatever. And I knew it was bad. I didn't get mad at him. He was really upset. He was really apologetic, and I was like, "Man, it's cool. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal." I didn't lose my cool. I was emotionally calm in the situation. I was like, you know what? He didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. Accidents happen. No big deal. And then I told everybody to get back to training. I was like, everybody was like, just kind of stopped. And I was like, no, get back to training. And we still got like 30 minutes of rolling left, so like, let's get to it. And then I went and like cleaned up myself and then went to the emergency room. But I was proud of that. And so another rule that I have that I take off the mats with me is when it comes to clips, articles, headlines, any of that normal stuff that can drive people bananas, I will stop and I have to go find the full length thing of that. This is like my fiance Jess, she always like reminds me of this sometimes if I get kind of like, oh man, that's stupid, whatever. And if I see something that irritates me. And the reason why is because it's interesting when you see such a small fraction of what the full thing is, a lot of times you miss out on stuff. And even in some cases, some people are just trolling you. I remember years ago, there was a spoof article. It was like talking about, this is like when I started noticing these fake articles started coming out. So it was an article about this guy who masturbated into like a hamburger and gave someone herpes, right? And then like, so yeah, that's like the first chunk of the article, right? Which I don't even think is possible, but whatever. And then, people were just running with this thing. And I saw several guys I know in jiu-jitsu who were like, yeah, this is why I don't eat fast food. And they're like taking this high horse about it. And I'm like, look, man, a Big Mac's delicious. I mean, like, I don't eat them very often. Like I've had one in the last 10 years, but it's still a tasty thing,
Sure.
But whatever. But I read the article. And then if you kept reading, if you went a little further, it went down to like it started basically bringing in characters from Coming to America.
Okay.
It was talking McDowell's and stuff. And
Okay.
I was like, oh, dude, this is fake. This is
trolling. Yeah.
It was like an Onion article, but it didn't present itself like the Onion.
Yeah.
There was another one where it was like talking about that this woman that got killed, killed a woman with an ice pick to get her son an Xbox for Black Friday. Didn't happen.
Lord.
Didn't happen. But like everybody was like sharing this is what's wrong with America, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, did you actually read the article? Because if you kept going, like it said that deaths related to Black Friday shopping were the #1 killer in America, just overtaking heart disease. I'm like, you people are it's like such short attention span. So you got to read the whole article because then you realize it's ridiculous. But you see this all the time where like, so here was one that came up recently. I was sitting there and I saw a bunch of my buddies who were definitely more towards, they lean towards the right. I guess you would call that in America, right? Because I hate saying that because it's like right and left, whatever. It's like, I don't know what anybody is. Like I have all kinds of ideas that go back and forth on both ends of the fence. But as we would say in America, this person, they call people like Russell Brand a right winger. It's like, he's not right wing at all. Yeah. But anyway, there was a thing where this woman was talking about the fact that like eating meat is misogynistic and like misogynistic and racist, and it's like white supremacy.
Was that a real thing?
It was.
Okay.
But like, I mean, granted, the woman's still cuckoo. I mean, she's crazy.
Well, I saw the video, and she's talking to a crowd of, so people are actually listening to this.
Yeah. So I was like, is this like an Onion article? Because it's like, there's a couple of them I've seen like where Onion, like you'll watch the Onion, and it's like, dude, this is like really like they really did this really well. But no, I went and looked at it. There was another one that I posted on my Instagram with like that had stuff about like, talking about like the was talking about like emojis.
Yeah, like the thumbs up.
Yeah, was talking about like the color of emoji you use and like how like using the like the one point the woman said like using the yellow one is like it's like it shows like white privilege or something. I was like, what? It's the default one. Like I never changed mine. I just went with yellow because it was like a cartoon.
It's the standard.
Yeah, and like I asked like several of my students who were like people of color. I was like, am I missing something here? And they're like, no, dude, I don't care. Like, so I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, so whatever. So, but I actually looked up. I was like, is this a real article? I went and looked. I was like, it's a real article.
Yeah,
read the whole thing. But again, I don't get that emotionally charged about it. I think it's more amusing than anything else because there's real problems
for sure.
Right? But I don't want to get too political. But that said, I have a rule. I read the full thing first so that I don't allow myself to be emotionally charged and pulled one way or the other, because then there's a lot of times where these people will put things in front of you and it's completely wrong, right? Like last year, there was like the thing said they were canceling Dr. Seuss. They weren't.
I remember that.
They weren't canceling Dr. Seuss. The publisher basically discontinued a couple of these, and like they were like the books that nobody read, like Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham. They weren't touching those. It was like these weird books that it was like the B squad of like Dr. Seuss books, but it was like it was something to sell, right? It was basically a lot of the media outlets that were like at the time when like I think like they were like the downfall of America is happening. They're basically they're canceling Dr. Seuss. The publisher got rid of it. It wasn't people. And so I just thought that was funny. So again, but you read through the whole article, you guys, and then you see everybody online getting all upset about it. Like you guys are all getting played. Like the publisher did it, and you've never read these books anyway. This is not read Cat in the Hat. It's not Green Eggs and Ham. This is not like the normal ones we all read as kids.
Yeah,
they were these ones with like really like, and if you actually look at the images, they're kind of messed up. Like so the public. So if I was a publisher, I'd be like, yeah, let's get rid of these. Like, we don't need to have these on anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think like I guess you can talk about like with the Joe Rogan stuff going on. They took a few episodes out, I think, recently on Spotify, which, whatever way you think about it, I think that even, probably Joe had to agree that they would be, I assume, I don't know, but I'm sure it was like it's probably not in the best taste, or they just weren't episodes that were adding anything positive to the conversation or just maybe weren't,
I can totally understand. I mean, I think it's just a weird place to be because like human growth's like a snake. As it grows, there's always a tail, right? And so that tail sometimes connects back to like places and times that are much different than now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back and watch like some of the funniest movies or some of the funniest comedy shows, you couldn't make them anymore. You can't. You couldn't make them. I mean, I feel like I heard someone talking about The Office.
Yes.
Was it you?
I think I told you. Yeah.
Like Steve
Carell's, like they were like asking about a reboot, and he's like, and he wasn't saying that he would want to make the same jokes. He's basically saying like, if we did a reboot, it would never be the same.
Right.
It just wouldn't have the same feel to it. It wouldn't. It's just a different time. That show was there for a certain time. It was special for the moment. You can't recreate that now. It would be just different. It just wouldn't be the same. It probably would disappoint more than anything.
Right. Well, the people would be looking for it to make something,
like you can't. It's just something you can't. The
expectations would be too high.
Right. True. And some people hate The Office. I love The Office, but I want to get back to the big thing about emotions, and I've had some instances that I'm not proud of where like I can think of a couple. I've been on the mats for 12, 13 years, something like that. So I can think of a couple instances where I lost my cool. And it was it was just usually with a like a white or a blue belt where it was really my responsibility to control the roll, and I didn't. And so it's my responsibility, and I got pissed off because I tweaked something or I injured something, and I think that having the awareness, like it's kind of hard in the middle of a roll to do that, or even to stop the roll altogether. If you're kind of tweaked something, but you can keep training, I think it can make it hard to kind of focus on that and bring awareness to your emotions. But like, is there something that like maybe if you're in mid roll or mid training that you're like in the middle of it and something happens, or maybe even like a careless or a reckless move? Like, I think one of those things could be, I think a situation I can remember is like, we had rolling going on, and like there was lower belts And usually if it's a lower belt and then an upper belt's next to them, the lower belts need to stop. And you said numerous times, like, hey, stop. And I could see you kind of got irritated because it could have caused some injury there. Like, so getting emotional on the mats or getting irritated or angry, what do you do to like bring awareness to it, maybe even in the moment?
I think it's practice. I think it's really what it is. It's like, so we don't get a lot of, think about modern society, right? We don't get a lot of chance to, we don't get a chance to really play around in those places. So we don't have like hardcore heated debates because we don't debate anything anymore. It's like either you agree with me or you're evil on both sides of everything, right? So we don't really have that place where we're like, we're going to talk about things in this heat of the moment, and we both got to stay level-headed. We don't play around there very often. Very few people actually fight. So they're not used to having that energy, that warrior aggressive energy come up inside of themselves. They're not used to dealing with it. You can see this where, I mean, you look in society, it's like, be nice, use your words, don't hit people. And they talk about this aggressive side in humans as if it's something bad or that it's something that we should contain. And you see them try to put the genie in that bottle and it escapes like steam in a kettle. Just you see it through things like road rage. You see it through people, the way they type online to people. You see it through like people fighting in grocery stores or whatever over stupid stuff. And you see it when people are in the gym and they get really friggin' angry and they're not used to dealing with things in that state. All of a sudden you stupid, like whatever, you see it. You're not used to being in that state. And so you have no practice. It's like a different mental state. It's like, imagine like, here's an example. Imagine a guy getting into an altered state with some sort of drug, right? And how he can function in that particular state or how he adjusts to it. Someone with practice who's been there lots of times, no problem. It's a normal day in the park for them. You give it someone the first time, holy moly, like it's a different world for them.
Yeah.
So same thing, when you get angry, if you're not used to being in that or emotionally charged or aggressive, whatever you want to consider it, if you get into that state and that warrior inside you starting to peak out, you have to like get used to what that feels like and be able to control yourself and be able to deal with that energy, because it's just energy coming up through you, and do whatever you will with that energy. But again, direct it accordingly to what you actually want to happen. And so I think that what happens a lot of times is people come into the gym, and if this happens to you where you get emotionally like angry or pissed off or irritated, a lot of times you're just not used to dealing with it. So you got to chill. You got to learn to control. You got to learn to practice. If it's something you struggle with personally, then when it comes up, you got to practice to be like, okay, it's happening. I'm getting angry. I want to like smack this dude on this back of his head for being an idiot and like hit me like he didn't mean to. It's cool. Take a breath. It's all right. Just like I said, I used to be really bad about that kind of stuff. I mean, I one of the times I was the most unproud of in my jiu-jitsu ever was there was a dude, and like we did this jiu-jitsu training camp. It was like 3 days long at the gym. We're all just exhausted, tired. And I remember he like, it was like the last roll and he went for a heel hook on me, and we're in the gi. So we're not supposed to, because we're getting ready for a competition. So we're not supposed to heel hook in the gi for this one. And he went for it. And I just lost my cool, man. I got up, I put him on knee on belly afterwards. Like I pulled out of it and like, I took it the wrong way. And I just drove in so hard that he ended up pulling some cartilage. Now his rib didn't break, whatever. He was okay afterwards. And we actually went to we laughed about it about a month later over breakfast. We used to go to breakfast sometimes together and just kind of hang out. No big deal. But at the time I was like, oh man, I messed up. And that was like one of the turning points. Like, I can't do this. I can't be this trained machine that like is trained to break people and then lose control of it. And so, I was like, I got to be in control of this thing at all times because it's dangerous. Yeah, be very, very dangerous. And if I get wild and I am not in control of myself, that's a dangerous thing. And so I was like, I got to be in control. And so again, it's practice. Yeah, not going to happen overnight. But if you notice that it happens, because like a lot of times afterwards, you notice, man, I didn't like the way I reacted. Yeah, for sure. That's the thing, right? If you were satisfied with your reaction, I guess whatever. But if you get done and you're like, I am not happy with the way that I reacted in a way that I do not like. So be ready for it next time. You got to like, when you're dealing with emotions and stuff like that, you've almost got to, if there's ways that you react, you almost have to put mental guards up.
Yeah.
Right. Mental guards that are like at the gates, like ready for it. Like, it's, and then you feel it coming up. For me, I feel like a lot of times when I have aggressiveness that comes up, it like comes up to my chest and up to my neck, and I can feel this energy rise. When I feel it, I'm like, oh, there it is. And so I've got like the training and the experience with it to deal with it.
Yeah.
Now I might turn the roll up a little bit. Like, for instance, I was rolling with one guy, and he literally this is recently, he elbowed me, kneed me, and like did something else like several times during the roll. And I told him, like, chill out a little bit, and then like he didn't. So I was like, all right. Now I didn't like get all angry, or I didn't hurt him or whatever thing else, but I like passed his guard real quick. And then I put him in side control. And I mean, I was squeezing
the shoulder justice.
I squeezed him. I was keeping pressure so he couldn't move. And I was just locking him down. So like, I gave him no space for the rest of that roll. So I used that energy towards the jiu-jitsu that I was using in a technical way, just being a little bit more urgent with what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I think it's practice. I think a lot of times it's practice. And again, you can take this over to other stuff. Think about with your kids. Like I know that a lot of you guys are parents. Like, how many times have you like done something with your kid and you're like, man,
for sure,
I'm not happy with the way I dealt with that situation? Because we're all human. We're all messed up. We break mentally and stuff, and we do something we shouldn't do. So what do? Next time it happens, just try to be like, okay, mental note. It's like a jiu-jitsu match, right? Get out there and compete. I didn't do this right. Okay, we'll fix it. So next time it happens, be ready for it.
Yeah.
It's just experience. And so, but I think the big problem is that a lot of people go through and they don't ever reflect. They realize they messed something up, but they don't reflect on it, like, and think, okay, what could I have done differently? What can I do better?
Yeah.
And then like mentally make a note of, all right, I'm going to be ready for this next time.
I think that and I wrote reflection in there, on my notepad here. And I think like when I had that situation where I got, I kind of hurt my shoulder, and I couldn't train for a little bit. I got pretty pissed off about it. And the moment I was kind of like, I didn't act in the right way. I would say that like taking reflection is super important. Like, you have to, if you can, step away, like say, I'm done rolling. Like I'm not just like, just if you can step away, take a walk. Yeah. So, but for me, it was like, I spoke to you about it. Like, find somebody at the gym, maybe that you, your coach or someone like or a buddy or someone that's been there that can give you some solid advice, and just like go through the situation with them. Like, what happened? Maybe how can it be avoided next time?
Well, and in your case, I dealt with it before. Like when
for sure.
Because like the situation you're talking about, you're telling me, and I'm like, this is just how it is, bro.
Yeah, and
it's just something to keep in mind for yourself.
Yeah, and you also like, first of all, it's it's yourself, but also like if you're a leader at the gym, if you're an upper belt, a black belt, brown belt, whatever, you're a coach. You don't want to. That's not the way to act. I mean, if you have to maybe put it on them a little bit, if you're not injured, but maybe tweak something, you can keep training, put them on a little bit, and be more aggressive like you did, in a controlled way. Just kind of get your point across that way. But I definitely think the reflection piece is important. Talking to someone, and for me, taking some space. Like, why did that happen? Like, why am I feeling that way? We talk about journaling a lot. I think that's one of the valuable things. Some shit will come up for you that maybe you didn't know was there just by writing it out. You start to like think about what's coming out on the page. And I think reflection is first of all, you got to find something that's problematic with the situation. Like, if you felt like you acted, appropriately,
if there was a problem,
different. But
there's a good book. I've mentioned it before. It's called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And it's by a guy who's like a neo-Jungian. It's like Robert Moore and Robert Gillette. And they talk about these archetypes. And if you listen to any like the people that were inspired by Jung's like works and stuff like that, they were talking about these archetypes. Essentially, there are these different like structures that are already in your brain or in your body, in your being. They're already there, but they like come on at different times.
Yeah.
And they will manifest in different ways depending on what you do with them. And so, again, whether or not it's like right on the money or not, I don't really care. I find it useful because it gives me a good frame of thinking for these things. And so with that thing, like the idea with like, say with the warrior and the king, we'll talk about those two. So the warrior, you see that warrior being used all the time. That's like the one that our society really loves, is like getting out and getting it and getting after it, charging forward, working, hustling, driving, whatever. But it's also the side of us that like can do damage to people or can be very aggressive.
Yeah.
That's that side of us. And in the book, they talk about the sort of the sides where it's aligned with the king, and we'll talk about the king in a second, and when it's not. So the king sort of energy, the king archetype, it essentially is you when you are in line with yourself and you know who you are, you know where you want to go, these kinds of things, right? And so if the king, kind of using this analogy, if the king is giving the warrior a mission, then the warrior is following like the right track, right? But if the warrior is not in control by the king, well, then he's like a mercenary, or he's just a person that's just terrible.
Yeah.
Or if your mission's kind of a bad thing, well, then your king's out of whack and you're becoming like a tyrant to yourself or something. But that's a whole other thing. But just basically being in line with who you want to be. If the energy that you are using is not in alignment with who you're trying to become as a person, you should know what that looks like. You should know that you're trying to become someone better or different, right? So if it's not in alignment with that, then there's a problem. And so if you react in a way that is not in a way that you want, they'll say it's not becoming of you. Like who you're becoming. So if you're acting in a way that's not the person you're trying to become, then obviously you need to be aware of that. It's out of alignment. It's out of whack. And so I think that's a useful. It's short. It's not a relatively short book, but it's a helpful way for me thinking of it is like that's the warrior in me, and it has to be in control, because a warrior that's let loose to do terrible things, that's a terrible thing. As a history geek, when warriors are just let loose and they're not under control of a higher power, of a higher authority of some sort, they sack cities and do all kinds of terrible stuff.
Yeah.
And likewise, like when our warriors are let free at the wrong times, it's a bad thing. So they have to be under our direct control and be aligned with what we're trying to do and who we're trying to be.
Do you think accessing that anger or getting angry can be beneficial in some instances? Like,
yeah.
So let me give you some scenarios. Obviously, on the jiu-jitsu mats, I mean, you'll see people kind of get in this different state before competition. The other thing is you'll see it in MMA quite often. Yeah. People are like angry. They're talking shit to each other. They're trying to get under each other's skin. Conor, of course, Conor McGregor is like one of the greatest at that. But he wasn't the one getting angry. He was getting other people angry. But do you think
he was doing it to others?
Gordon
Ryan did. Yeah.
Do you think that getting angry yourself, like being angry yourself, could be a positive in any instance, like going out into competition, maybe in the competition mats? Do you think it would maybe help you?
No, I don't. If you're talking about being angry, like full blown, like pissed off, no, that's going to get you in a bad spot. I mean, like anytime again, this goes back to you can't lose your emotions. When you lose control of your emotions, you do dumb stuff. Right. Like, so like when you can watch people get angry and it usually doesn't help. It usually gets them in trouble. You can look at some of those fights with Conor.
Jose Aldo.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, he's got a couple of them, right? Guys get angry and they do dumb things and they get caught because they overextend. They try to go too hard.
Yeah.
And again, going back to like Gordon Ryan, when people get angry at him, they end up getting DQ'd or they end up putting themselves in bad spots. And it's a terrible idea. Now, you can use the anger to fuel you, right? Because you can feel that anger and you can say, you know what, I'm going to trim my tail off because I want to beat that guy, but be in control of it. And so the thing is you don't want to be recklessly aggressive, but you do want to be assertive. Assertive is different, right? So like I forgot the guy's name. I think his last name was Buss. He was a psychologist and he was talking about two types of aggression. There's like a reckless aggression that's basically just doing damage and hurting and everything else. And then there's a controlled aggression, which was assertiveness.
Yeah.
And so assertiveness is what you want. Like when you go into competition mat, you don't want to be recklessly aggressive because you'll do dumb stuff. I think it was Arnold Buss if you're looking it up.
I'm gonna see.
But yes.
No, go ahead.
So you don't want to be recklessly aggressive. You want to be assertive because you want to be out there. You want to go out there and you want to like take it to someone. And a lot of times the negative emotions can be used for really good effect. So for instance, let's say if you're training or you're working on something or you're whatever, if someone makes you angry, use that anger to push you forward. Like I remember like people making me angry because I remember when I was getting ready for one of my last fights, there were people in the local MMA community that were talking trash about me, saying that like I couldn't strike and like, oh man, like all you can do is grapple, whatever. And then I was like, screw that. I'm going to go out there and like, I'm going to show what I did. I worked my friggin' tail off in the gym. Also, like people will tell you can't do things. Like people say, oh man, you can't do this. Like, you know, they'll cut you short. And that's usually the best thing for me. It's like, it's the most motivating thing in the world, because I'm like, okay, I'll show you.
It angers you in a different way.
It angers me because it's like, I can do this, but again, you can think about this. You have different reactions. Some people get angry, or they get like upset and they let it fold them. You know, people get told they can't do something and they believe it. Or you can say, well, you told me I can't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah. I think I was just looking at there's all kinds of stuff on aggression. They talk about two major types.
Yeah.
One is proactive and reactive. Or
I mean, dude, there's so much stuff into it, so you could look into it. But
so there's a lot, but like, I think it's just about how you use it. I think like somebody says you can't do something, right? You get angry. Well, I'll show you, right? I'm
going to get aggressive towards doing my work, or towards doing whatever I got to do.
Yeah, I'm going to use that as fuel motivation. I think that's
or if someone makes you angry, let's say someone makes you angry, you notice every time you're around someone, they always do something to piss you off.
Yeah.
Use that anger. Say, I don't want to be angry anymore. I'm cutting you out of my life.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's an example of using it in a productive way, in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know, talking about trimming the fat, kind of, you know, getting people out of your life that aren't conducive to your goals.
Yeah. Emotions are just energy. It's just energy coming up through your body. What you do with it, it should be up to your decision. But if you don't recognize it, it does all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the way it is. I mean, you can feel it. I mean, think about it, like emotions. You start getting sad. It's this energy, this negative energy that comes over that just makes you want to, like, depresses your body.
Yeah.
And you just want to cry, you know, or you get this excited energy, this excited, happy emotion, and you want to go do something, right? Or you get angry. I mean, like, there's these different energies, and it's just like, recognize them and then use them for what you want to, and be in tune with your body, rather than allowing it to just happen, which sometimes is going to happen, but nonetheless, like, you want to at least be in control of it more often than not. But I feel like a lot of people, again, they're not used to dealing with it. And that's one of the cool things about jiu-jitsu, is that you get this place where you can deal with a lot of these emotions, like, and have to see them for what they are. And you're in a safe space. You're in a contained space where, again, we're working in a place where nobody's going to chastise. Well, I say that, some people might, but nobody's going to, like, they understand what you're going through. Like, for instance, like when you did your little thing that you're talking about earlier, I didn't come up to you and go, dude, like, I didn't like bark at you, whatever. I was like, been there before. And we just talked about it. Right. And that's the thing. Like, so what was I was reading a bunch of this stuff recently, in his book, Iron John, Robert Bly was talking about people being, he talks about this symbology and about this red, white, and black. And like the black or the white is more of this, like, nice sort of communal based thing. The black is like more of us going inward, like it's not bad. Like, black is more of like inward, we're going towards ourselves. A lot of times, like, when you think of like a Black Knight or something in stories, we think about, but it's more of like going inward. It's a different period of our life, typically towards the later. It's the color of the soil. We're going back
towards more towards death.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
The red is where we're like red hot, right? We're fiery. We're getting after it. And so, and he was talking about, like, in old tribal societies, like, there would be a lot of these societies where the men would be seen as being in the red, right? And they would have all the symbology around the being in the red, and they would have older men working with them to help them deal with that. Like, you're going to be here for a while. Let us help you contain this thing and work with dealing with it and use it, right? Like, almost like you're forging something. You've got like got a piece of like a red hot metal, right? We can mold it right now. So we're going to help you mold this thing so you can use it.
That's a great analogy.
And then later on, you're going to be white and you're going to be more cooled down and everything else. But right now you're red hot. And so we don't deal with the red very often. Like, when is it okay in our society to be red hot, to be angry, to deal with it? It's usually not. But in the gym, we know, everybody knows, like, sometimes you're going to lose your cool. It's cool, man. Just like, here's what you got to do. Like, just relax, breathe. Like, we can work there, and you don't get a lot of places to do that. And so that, I think that does a negative thing, because we don't get a place. You even think about, like, relationships. It's like, people don't even really get to argue without it being considered a bad thing. It's okay to argue sometimes, as long as you know what you're arguing for. Like, going back to the aggression, we got to know where our line is. What are we actually arguing about? But it's okay to argue with people as long as you know what you're arguing about, and you've chose to do so. You've chose to step up to that battle with your own volition, not like because you just lost control, right? But we don't get a chance to play in the red very often. We don't get a chance to do that when we're young. And so for me, that's always something that's been really helpful, because my temper, man, I don't know what it was, but I had a hell of a temper. I'd fly off the handle over stuff, just dumb stuff. Like I remember being as a late teenager, I would just get so angry over stuff sometimes, like, dumb stuff. Like I remember me and my buddies, like we'd be playing a video game, and like I'd break controllers and stuff, and I get angry. What am I doing? This is so stupid. Now I can't play the game, dumbass. Like, in my head, after I'm done, I'm like, what the hell? What was that? It was this thing that got angry all of a sudden, and it lost control.
It's the reflective moment comes after the fact. You're like, shit, I can't play my game anymore. Right. And I don't want to be like that. Nobody's gonna want to be around me when I'm like that. And if you're someone that loses your cool on the mats all the time, it's gonna suck, dude. Nobody's gonna want to train with you. You're gonna be just like somebody that's kind of just almost like a firecracker ready to go off, and you never know when that's going to be. But
if you get a chance to play with it, you can be, this is the place. This is the place that I am. Let me control this, and let me use this, and I can use it productively, because that's energy. Like some of my best working periods were when I was pissed off or angry or whatever, and I was like, I'm going to get after this thing, and I'm going to work my tail off in the gym, or I'm going to work my tail off on the computer and do all this stuff, so it can be useful. You know how to use it.
Yeah, and I think it all kind of comes from awareness. Like being able to reflect on the situation, be aware of what it is, and kind of what you want, where you want it to go.
Yeah,
because you can get pissed off and hurt people, but it doesn't get you anywhere, right? It doesn't get you to where you want to be. And I think being able to focus on it and figure out what it is, why it's coming up, regardless if it's, on the mats or from reading an article or some shit like that.
And you can look at it in negatively. A lot of times we look at it negatively. That's the problem too. It's like, it isn't negative. It isn't positive. It just is, right? It is what it is. When I say negative emotions, I'm using those terms because, it's easy for us to understand, right? But they're just what they are, right? So again, it isn't good or bad. It just is. And I think that's the big thing, is when you have those feelings, a lot of people want to immediately suppress them, keep them down, right? And then they'll keep them down for a little bit, and then they pop back out again. That's a problem, because you're not honoring who you are really at its core.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily about suppressing it. It's about working with it and being like, this is a part of who I am, and how do I deal with this side of myself? Because every one of us, we're multifaceted. We have all these different sides of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we have these sides, and we have to learn how to deal with them. For you guys that watched, I did a recent video where I was talking about some of these similar ideas in the book, Gates of Fire. I read that book recently by Stephen Pressfield. By the way, if you guys are history geeks like me, then you understand there's tons of historical inaccuracies, but nonetheless, I thought the book was interesting. And because Stephen Pressfield, he was a Marine and whatever, and he generally in most of his books has an interesting sort of finger on the pulse of human nature. He just has a lot of insights to stuff that a lot of us, if you've done jiu-jitsu for long enough, you could probably read that book and see things I totally know what this guy's talking about. But in the book, the fictional Leonidas, he had this thing. It was these what they call tickets. So essentially, they in the book, the Spartans would wear a bracelet that then had this twig on the end, and it would have their name on one side, have their name on another side, and they would break it in half. And so at the end of the battle, they would have to go reclaim their second ticket, and at the end of the battle, they would basically have these leftover tickets. Those were the guys that died in the battle. And then we would then have, everybody else would have their tickets. Well, at the end, Leonidas is joining his tickets together. And he's talking about the fact, and I'll paraphrase here. If you actually want to see the full thing, you can watch the video on YouTube or whatever. But basically, at the end of it, and if you guys got my email, you got this one as well. But he was saying that, essentially when you go into battle, when you're accessing this warrior inside of yourself, you leave behind the side of yourself that's the best side, the side that's compassionate, that loves his children, that, takes care of his wife and sings and songs in the chorus and all this stuff. And instead you're this brutal machine that's going out there doing terrible stuff. But then when you come back, the two sides are joined together again. As we put our two tickets together, we're rejoined with both of those people. And I think that's just an interesting way. I think there's more sides than just that than two. But again, that's kind of an interesting idea to play around with, where it's there's more than just, who we are. We're multiple people wrapped. We're multiple sides of ourselves. We're this person, yes, but there's multiple sides of us, and these different sides escape at different times, or they take over at different times. And this is why, like, um, like people that are well versed with their aggression, they tend to be very chill people. That's why, like, the most dangerous room and the most dangerous guy in the room is the most quiet. We say that. So I think this is for a reason, because they're used to being there. They're in control of it at all times. And so I think that's just an interesting idea to think about. Again, being aggressive is not a bad thing. Being angry is not a bad thing. It just is what it is. The key is to be in control of it so that you don't lose control yourself. So that if you decide that you want to be angry about something, you can be angry about it. If you want to be aggressive towards something and be assertive towards it, you can be that way. So this way you don't end up, losing your cool in the middle of a match and, smacking someone in the head, and you don't lose sleep over some stupid article that you read on the internet about something that you're really not even that interested in anyway. All right, guys. So that is the podcast today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully there's a couple ideas that you found useful. Hopefully you didn't get too emotional during the middle part of that podcast when we started to go towards it's so funny because I know that this is the way that works. People, and you got to be careful about this. This is another like tip, right? People, because we don't like unfamiliarity, when we get to know people in a certain way, we want them to be that way and only that way. And that's it. And so a lot of times, like when say I have opinions. Granted, I don't share them that often because it's not my place. I don't really, I don't have strong convictions, and especially into the realm of politics like I do jiu-jitsu. So it's just not my
politics
place.
Are very divisive.
Well, they're divisive, but at the same time, it's like I don't really have an educated opinion, so I don't talk about it very often, right? But I have opinions, and it's interesting because sometimes my opinions come out, and people will like, oh, Chewy, how dare you? You shouldn't. And like, well, you made an idea of who you thought I was. I'm a person. I'm not a guy that just like they just trot out and put out for videos or something. Like like I'm not a robot. Hey, let me do these videos. Don't ever get into a habit of basically putting people into a box and expecting them to be that way. Allow people to be whoever they're going to be. And, again, no matter who you are, you're going to like some things that people do, and you're going to dislike some things you do. Like this idea, especially today, where we all got to agree and stuff. Like, no, like if I could only like people that 100% agreed with me, I wouldn't like myself because my mind changes on stuff all the time. So it's like, I'd be in a bad place. Like I'd hate everyone else and hate myself. So, what do I got? So again, we're going to disagree with people, but that's okay. Cause again, like the disagreements, it creates a lot of cool stuff. And a lot of times you have some really interesting ideas that come from it. But you're just never going to agree with everyone else. And so again, take the stuff you agree with and just respect that people are also going to have disagreements with you, or they're going to have different ideas. But that said, again, sometimes if you guys listen to the podcast, because this has happened before, I've had some emails come towards me about my opinions. If I have an opinion that you disagree with, you're welcome to send me a message if you want, but do so in an unemotional manner. Do so in a way that where we just talk. Because that's what happens a lot of times is like I sent out an email about the Joe Rogan thing in my email list, and someone was got really upset about it. And then I asked them to expand on their ideas. And by the end of the email, we're like chatting with each other, and we don't see 100% exactly the same, but we agree on all the big issues. And we're like, oh, that was a really nice conversation. Thanks for getting back to me. It's like, we could have done that from the beginning. We don't have to fight.
For sure.
We can disagree. It's cool. It's fine. And so again, that's an important thing. So again, if any part of this, nothing that I said really was that controversial or that you said, but nonetheless, if something did, be in control.
It's all right. Send us a message. Tell us what you think if you like, and we'll have
or just accept that we're going to disagree.
Keep it to yourself.
Or that we're just going to disagree, but that I still hope I still hope you have great training.
For sure.
I hope that you have a healthy life, and I hope you do big things regardless, because that's just the way it works, right? So nonetheless, that is the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, big thanks to our sponsors, Acorn. Easy investing doesn't have to be intimidating. In fact, accessible investing happens every day on the Acorns app. Acorns takes your spare change from your daily purchases and invests it into portfolios that can grow with time. On average, Acorns users invest $490 a year just from spare change alone. Start putting your spare change to work and get a bonus $20 with an investment of $5 from you when you sign up at the Acorns app by going to acorns.com/jiu-jitsu. Remember to consider your investment objectives before investing. For further information, including risks, visit acorns.com. And also thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web. Again, take the non-official Chewy CBD challenge. Say non-official because like no one's running it. It's just like my encouragement to you. Try one of their CBD products for 1 month and see how you feel. Again, you may not like it. You may not feel anything from it. But if you do, then if you're like me and it's a game changer for you, it'll be something you're like, oh man, where was this all my life? Love this stuff. So you can give it a try by going to their website at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20, 20% off your order. They give a little bump up from the 15 that we used to have, which is pretty nice. And also, guys, if you're in the market for yourself or someone else, for some jiu-jitsu gear, shirts, rash guards, shorts, gis, just whatever, anything related to jiu-jitsu, check out epicrollbjj.com. Matt has a collection of stuff, lots of cool designs, lots of high quality stuff, and you can get it at his website for 15% off. If you go to epicrollbjj.com and use the promo code jiu-jitsu. Again, I wear his t-shirts all the time. If you guys watch the channel, sometimes you'll see me in shirts that aren't like specific to jiu-jitsu or my gym. Most of the time it's one of his shirts.
A video on Instagram, you were doing the giggler, and you had the rash guard and the shorts on. Yeah, they were nice.
Have the new stuff. And again, nice. Thank you guys also to all the support, because a lot of you guys ordered the rash guards and the shorts.
They're awesome.
Hope you guys love them. And then also, if you guys want to support the podcast directly and get access to a boatload of content, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Inside of that membership, you have access to years of content, videos, podcast extras with each guest that we've had on the podcast, unreleased podcasts with Eugene and I, unreleased conversations, tips from questions that we get from the Patreon people. And if you would like, we do a green room once a month where you get to hang out with me and Eugene live on before a podcast actually gets recorded, where we hang out and we just kind of shoot the shit. And if you would like to join in us and do that, go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast to join. And if you would like to join my Chew Crew email list and get access to some free resources, you can do so by going to chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. When you join up, you will get added to my Chew Crew email list, where I send out email usually once a day, sometimes on the weekends, but usually just like once a day through the week, Monday through Friday. You'll also get access to 3 free ebooks. One is on drilling strategies to get rid of plateaus with your jiu-jitsu when you get like a sticky point, and also to help your game get better faster. There's a video that comes along with that, by the way. Then you get access to a game plan guide where you can help develop your jiu-jitsu game plan. And then last, you will get access to a at-home study and workout series that we put together. This was originally put together during the like initial lockdowns and quarantines and stuff. It gives you some good ideas on both jiu-jitsu study and also how to do some different stuff at home as far as workouts go. Some are specific to just fitness and some are specific to jiu-jitsu. And you can get all those for free by going to jiu-jitsu.net/join. And guys, with that said, that's the end of the podcast. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.